Just ahead on American Black Journal, the first national museum dedicated to the African American experience is drawing huge crowds in Washington. I'll talk with the president of the Charles H. Wright Museum about this historic cultural attraction. Plus, the DPS Foundation raises money for Detroit students. Stay with us. American Black Journal starts right now.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson, and thanks for joining us. The Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture is attracting an unprecedented number of visitors since its grand opening last month. The interest is so great that the museum is distributing free timed passes for entry into the museum, and the next available passes are for early next year. Tens of thousands of people were at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. for the dedication of the historic museum, which was led by President Obama.
James Baldwin once wrote, "For while the tale of how we suffer and how we are delighted and how we may triumph is never new, it always must be heard." For while the tale of how we suffer and how we are delighted and how we may triumph is never new, it always must be heard. Today, as so many generations have before, we gather on our national mall to tell an essential part of our American story, one that has at times been overlooked. We come not just for today, but for all time.
I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know good change gonna come. Oh yes, we.
Today, a dream too long deferred is a dream no longer. What a grand and glorious day to open a museum that will not just tell of a people's journey, but also of a nation's story. It's hard for me to believe that we are at this moment where we, as a nation, will finally fulfill the expectations and hopes of so many generations who believed and labored for a presence on the National Mall that would help all Americans realize how much they've been shaped, informed, and made better by the African American experience.
Where is our song of love? Where is the song of love? Not a song of love between you and me, but a song of love for all humanity. Where's our love song? Our desperately needed song of love.
As long as there is the United States of America, Now there will be a National Museum of African American History and Culture. This is a great achievement. I tell you, I feel like singing the song, Mahalia Jackson song at the March on Washington over 50 years ago, How We Got Over, How We Got Over. There were some who said it couldn't happen, who said you can't do it, but we did it, we did it. We're gathered here today to dedicate a building, but this place is more than a building. It is a dream come true.
My first guest today attended the museum's dedication. That's such a huge day in Washington and around the country. She also has the distinction of having led two similar African-American cultural gems, the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee, and the Charles H. Wright Museum here in Detroit. I'm pleased to have Juanita Moore back with us on American Black Journal. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a huge day. I mean, you think about the people who gave speeches, the songs that were sung, and the words that people put together to welcome this museum to our national mall, which is of course where most of our important national museums are. Talk really quickly about the day and the spirit there on the mall as we open this museum.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. You know, you start the day and you get there thinking that you walk in, and of course the line is like 4 blocks long.
Right.
First of all, 4 blocks long, and you see, you know, just amazing faces of people from everywhere standing in line to get into the ceremonies. And, you know, people had children there, and there were seniors there, and there were so many Detroiters there.
Yeah,
you know,
I would
to
imagine,
walk down
right?
that line, and as you know, I'm going down the line to get to the end of the line since I was a little, you know, not knowing that it would be 4 blocks long.
Right.
I had the opportunity to stop hugging people because there were so many Detroiters that were there for the event. It was absolutely the most amazing experience to open this museum that, you know, people have worked really hard for decades, and to have known some of those people and know that they've now passed on and didn't get an opportunity to see the fruits of their labor, but to know that it really has happened is just...
And the story of this museum I love, because it really is, it boils down to one person who decided it needed to happen and just worked and worked and worked and worked. And many, many, many years later, and lots of other people sort of coming to the table to help later, it actually happens. I mean, that really is, I think, symbolic of the kind of struggle that this is trying to commemorate.
I think so, absolutely. And that's really, if you think about it, that's the story of so many of our museums. Dr. Wright with the Charles Wright Museum.
Absolutely.
You know, the DeSable, Margaret Burroughs at the DeSable Museum.
Yeah.
You start to think about all of those, you know, these people, you know, Aurelia Brooks out in the California African American Museum, Harry Robinson down at the Dallas African American Museum. You have all of these people in these museums all over the country where you have these individuals that's worked and worked and work, and then people in their community stepped up to help them make it happen. So it is only fitting that this museum has come and being birthed the way that it has been.
Yeah. As I said in the open, you led the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. You lead the Charles H. Wright here. Put this new museum in sort of context. I mean, it's a different iteration of this story. My understanding is that the collection is, of course, just huge. I mean, gargantuan, and it probably will take me several days, I think, when I finally get to Washington to get through it. But put it in the context of the other museums. I mean, we're all familiar with the Wright here. Lots of people have been to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. What makes this one different?
It's a Smithsonian institution.
Well,
when you think
start
about
there, right?
you start right there with the whole, you say it is a Smithsonian institution. And when you look at the museums of the Smithsonian, and you think about that they represent the history and culture of this country, because that's what when people come to this country, everybody wants to go to Washington, D.C.
Sure.
to start there as a story. And so this museum in many ways helps to complete that story. Of course, there are other stories left to be told and to be added, but this was a big piece that was missing. And when you go to the Smithsonian institutions, and to have this museum added and finally have that voice added to the story of American history was just, I mean, it was just such heart-rendering and just amazing to be there and to see the look on people's faces. And they kept, there was one elderly woman that they, you know, that you could kept, the cameras kept flashing to her so you could see her. And every time you would see her face, you understood the power of this museum. Because it was like, I remember being at a voting booth once, and I was in Memphis, and it was the first time that a Black person had ran for mayor, and there was a woman that was there in line. It was a really long line, and they kept saying, well, do you want to get out of the line? And she said, no, honey, I would have been here today if I'd had to crawl.
Right.
It meant that much to her. So you saw that kind of same, that meaning for people that were there and standing in line and waiting to be a part of that.
I think for a lot of people who aren't familiar with the museum, you might sort of look at this idea and think that this is somehow a downer, right? That it's about slavery, and it's about Jim Crow, and it's about this sort of long narrative journey that African Americans have sort of suffered in this country. But looking at some of the coverage of it and looking at the collection, it seems to me that it does a better job of sort of uplifting the Black experience and sort of celebrating it in ways while still dealing with all of those other sort of ugly things in our past.
Yeah, I think that it's what it does is it adds this really major part to American history that we've missed.
We've ignored.
And the story that we've just and we know that America's story is one of triumph, it is one of challenges, it is one of disappointments, it is one of achievement. It's all of that. I was just sharing with you that President Bush that day, I was writing down one of his quotes. He said, "A great nation doesn't hide from its challenges. It faces its flaws and corrects them." And
what a wonderful
idea, thing to have said. And that was a challenge. That was missing when you start to look at the story of America. And in all of its flaws and triumphs and beauty and all of it, that was missing. It was missing as you walk through the Smithsonian institutions.
And I mean, if you go to the other museums, Black people are represented a little bit, but not very much.
Not very much. So you wanted that to have that story there. And it is the largest of the Smithsonian Institution museums. And
I mean, just the size of that building.
Just the size of the building. It's the largest of it. So, and it's spectacularly, it's beautiful. It is so gorgeous that, you know, you look at the building and go, wow. You know, that's uplifting in and of itself. And then to walk in it, to know that you can go through all of those years of history. Now, it's just not history. Like all African American museums I know, it is not just a history museum. It is art, it is dance, it is theater, it is a totality of the African American experience in America. But you know, it's not all of it, because there's not enough walls.
Do that,
That's why. But I think in what people do, they will go to DC and see this story and know that there's so much other parts of the story to see and hear. And they would come to the Charles Wright Museum, they would go to the National Civil Rights Museum, they would go to the American Jazz Museum, they would go to the California African American Museum, they would go to the DeSable in Chicago, they would go to Texas, they would go to Birmingham, they would go to all of our institutions and see.
And start to really understand
and be proud of what exists in their own backyards.
All right, as always, thanks very much for being here. And I'm jealous that you were there and I was not, but I will get there soon.
Absolutely. And then you won't even remember that you weren't there.
That's right. It'll be my experience too.
Yes.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to get details on a signature event raising money for students in Detroit public schools. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1972, Lady Sings the Blues, starring Diana Ross and Billy D. Williams, debuted in American movie theaters.
Lady sings the blues. She's got them bad. She feels so sad.
In 2002, radio personality Ed Love was recognized by the Southeast Michigan Jazz Association. And in 1966, Dave Bing debuted for the Detroit Pistons. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
The Detroit Public Schools Foundation is holding its third annual Champions of Education fundraiser this month. In addition to saluting this year's honorees, the evening features entertainment by students in the Detroit Public Schools Community District. Proceeds from the event will be used to provide much-needed resources for those students. Here to tell us more about the event and the Detroit Public Schools Foundation is President and CEO Pamela Moore. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you, Stephen. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that there is a Detroit Public Schools Foundation.
That's very true.
So let's start with what is the foundation? What does it do?
So the foundation was created to really enhance and create educational opportunities for DPS Community District. So we do that by raising dollars and re-granting those dollars to DPS CD. And so it's very true that people don't know that there's a foundation, but DPS has many, many needs.
Yeah.
And so we hope to grow the foundation to raise unrestricted dollars. We are fiduciary for many restricted dollars that come in, but those unrestricted dollars allow us to really invest in what we see as the priorities.
Yeah, and that need to be able to raise that money to help augment the budgets that they have in the schools. I mean, you couldn't overstate that need, I don't.
No, the need is huge. From everything from musical instruments to washers and dryers needed in schools to STEAM programs. I mean, the list is long.
Yeah. So your event every year picks some people to sort of celebrate.
Yes.
But then, of course, tries to raise money.
That's true. So this is our third annual Champions of Education, sponsored by Ford Motor Company Fund. Our reception sponsor is MGM Grand Detroit. It's going to be a wonderful event. It is October 13th, next Thursday. And it's a short evening starting at 5:30, but we do showcase all of the wonderful talent inside of DPS CD. So our students will be dancing and singing. The mariachi group will be playing. The All City Jazz Combo will be gracing us with their talents. And then we are going to pay tribute to our DPS CD honorees, Interim Superintendent Alicia Merriweather, as well as Willie McAllister, who is over the Fine Arts program, and then our corporate honorees, Ford Motor Company Fund, as well as ABC Student Transportation will be honored as well.
Yeah, and talk about the things that end up happening with the money that you guys raise.
So going back to those priorities, and we are in alignment with what DPSCD sees as the priorities. So first and foremost for us is early childhood education and literacy. We know how important it is for children to get into school before kindergarten. It makes a huge difference at where they will be at the third grade in terms of reading and literacy. So that is our priority, to raise money to enhance what the federal dollars already provide. There are 189 early childhood classrooms currently at DPSCD. Then secondly is STEAM.
That's something I'm not sure everyone knows.
No.
There are that many efforts going on.
Over 3,000 pre-K students.
Yeah.
And so we know how important that early childhood experience is inside of the classroom. Secondly is STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Right.
And then career pathways. And so my former life of workforce development, it was a priority that we had not really identified prior to my coming 6 months ago.
Sure.
And it's an important priority. We have to prepare our young people before they graduate high school for these careers that have not even even been seen in Detroit over the last 5 years for our young people that are not going to college, perhaps, or need to go into some vocational training, credentials, apprenticeships. So we need to tell our young people and their parents about those opportunities. And then last, it's what we call beyond the classroom experiences, not only for our students, but teacher professional development, working with corporate and community partners, and parental engagement is also a huge piece. So those are kind of our 4 buckets, but you know, we raise money for Camp Burt Shirley. We have the Detroit College Promise, which was founded by our board member, Dr. Pernick. And so, again, the list is long, but it's just important for us to raise the money, to make people aware that there's a foundation, and to have a really good time on October 13th.
Right. That's important too. So, as you mentioned, you used to work in workforce development here in the city of Detroit. Now you're with the DPS Foundation. Those are sort of in the same bucket.
I think so.
And they, I think, give you a front row seat to some of the fundamental issues that we have in the city, the things we're just not doing well enough.
I would agree.
At the early end, right?
That's
with
right.
Kids in the school district, and then at the later end with adults.
And we need to start as early as possible. Again, these high growth, high demand occupations and opportunities that are now here in Detroit, we have to tell our young people about them and tell their parents and start preparing them.
Got to be prepared.
Got to be prepared as early as possible, as early as elementary school, but certainly middle school and absolutely high school. And so, yeah, I do feel like I'm on the front end now, and we have to get this information out. I mean, I am a proud product of DPS, and DPS gave me everything I needed. And our young people really don't have all that they need right now. We know what the test scores are looking like, not only in the urban core, but across this state. And we've got to do much better. We have not done as good of a job as adults for our children as we really need to do. And so we need to get it right when we elect the school board. Yes. We need to get it right in terms of leadership and leaders that are putting our children first, which we have really not done.
Yeah. I ask everybody who's got anything to do with the new school district and the reset that we are sort of trying out this year, how optimistic they are that things are headed in the right direction. I know we've had Alicia Merriweather on the program a couple times. She's very impressive in terms of setting that direction. I'm wondering if you feel like we're getting there.
I'm optimistic because I have the opportunity to work closely with the leadership inside of DPSCD, and these are people that show up every day. They're highly credentialed, they're passionate, they're dedicated, they come to school every day, come to work every day with not enough resources, and just get the job done quietly. And so I believe if we elect the right school board, if we elect the right leadership within the district, and give the power back to the citizens and the people of the city of Detroit, I have to be optimistic that we will start to see some improvements. But we really are out of chances. These are 46,000 young people coming through a district and graduating without having the real tools and resources and the preparation that they need to be competitive and go into careers that will sustain them and their families. And so we have to get that right.
Yeah. Do you think we will get to a day where we don't need a DPS Foundation to keep augmenting what we have in the city schools?
I don't know. You know, the tax base, the number of people that have left the city of Detroit, it's still a struggle. And so again, everything from textbooks to enhancements in the classroom, I think there'll always be a need for the foundation. I think we serve an important purpose, just to be fiduciary for people that want to grant money to the district, but the district is a big district. It's slow to move things through the district. So, you know, we are here to stand in for that purpose and to serve as fiduciary and oversee that investment.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for being here, and good luck with your
Stephen.
event.
Thank you.
Finally, here's a quick look at what's coming up this week. Today is the last day for this year's Young Eagles Detroit Fly-In, at the Coleman A. Young International Airport. Detroit students can show up with a parent or guardian from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. for free airplane rides. I know my kids would love that. The educational program is a partnership between the Tuskegee Airmen, Friends of City Airport, and DPS Community District. And then Tuesday, October 11th, is the final day to register to vote in one of the country's most talked about presidential elections. You can get information about how to register or check your registration status at usa.gov. The election is November 8th, of course. And Detroit Public Television's second annual Detroit Performs Live concert and gala is going to take place on Friday night at the Fillmore in downtown Detroit. The event celebrates Detroit music and features several local performers. Proceeds benefit Detroit Public Television. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.